Hi everyone. Thanks again, and thanks to everyone for welcoming you. So I'm gonna dive straight into it. So this is what I'm gonna try and cover. Everyone hear me well at the back as well? Great. So this is what I'm gonna try and cover. So I work at an organization called the Behavioral Insights team. So I'm gonna try and cover what are behavioral insights. Probably doesn't really make sense right now. Who are the Behavioral Insights team? A little bit about our team, and then I guess what's most exciting, I guess, and interesting, but also the question I have least concrete answers to: can this approach actually help certain policy in Slovakia? But bit of trouble there. But I thought I'd start with a short game and a short experiment. I think Miko was talking there about, like, one of the benefits of experimentation is you learn new things, and one of the downsides is sometimes it goes wrong. So apologies in advance if this doesn't work. But can I ask everyone in the room to just get a bit of paper or your phone, just anything you can write with? Do it now, everyone. We're going to need, like, everyone in this room to do this, otherwise it's not going to work. We're not going to have enough people. So if everyone can find a pen, paper, a phone, an iPad, laptop, anything you can write on. And borrow from someone else who's sitting next to you if you don't have it. I'll just give you a couple of seconds. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to ask you to get your pens and paper and then put it down for a second. Get ready with it. And I'm just going to flash up lots of words very fast on this screen. And then it's like a memory exercise. I'm going to ask you to remember as many as you can. See who's still alert this long in the morning before the coffee break. Great. Okay, so keep your pens down. I'll flash up these words and then we'll see if it works or not. Okay, you ready? Excellent. So these are the words. Don't write them down as they come up, otherwise you'll be cheating. Okay, these are the words. Bed, rest, awake, tired, dream, wake, snooze, blanket, doze, slumber, snore, nap, peace, yawn, drowsy. Go for it. Write down as many as you can remember. Great, so keep writing down any of the ones you can remember, any last ones in your mind. Try not to cheat and look at the person next to you. Okay, great. So, I mean, how was that? Painful? Why is someone up here asking me to do it? Who managed to get at least, just raise your hand if you managed to get at least 6 of those words. Raise your hand really high. Okay, great. Anyone managed to get 8? 10? Okay, some real champions here. But obviously that's not, the point here is not to test your memory really, it's to test something else. So what I want you to do, I'm going to put up specific words. Again, just raise your hand if you managed to get this one. Ooh. This is being a bit jumpy, so apology in advance. So did anyone remember snore? Put your hand up. Okay, a handful of you. What about wake? Okay, most of you. What about blanket? A few less. Nap? Okay. Anyone managed to get sleep? Okay, great. Keep your hands up if you managed to get sleep. Okay, the point of this is sleep is not here. And I mean, in some ways what's going on here is really obvious, right? All these words are associated with sleep. In other ways, this is kind of really interesting and kind of what psychologists and behavioral scientists are really interested in. And this is to do with how you remember, right? When you focus and you go into your brain doesn't operate as a filing cabinet where every single memory is stored, right? You don't just go and store today's memory, Luke Ravenscroft at this conference, I'll put that here and here. Your memory is associative, right? You connect and you attach. It's a hub and spoke system. So when you put these words together and you're starting to remember wake, snore, bed, your mind jumps to sleep. And this is true of everyone. 40 to 55% of people will falsely remember. So in some ways, this is kind of fun and nice way to start. In other ways, things like this are really interesting. And this is the whole point of behavioral science. The idea is there are these sort of ways your brain operates, which is not rational. But the key is it's not just like random mistakes. You can systematically predict these errors. and it's the ability to systematically predict them which allows you to improve policy. That's basically the whole talk there. The rest is just some examples of where we've done this. Okay, so coming back to these questions, what are behavioral insights? Okay, so most policy concerns behavior. Most people working on in this room, you're trying to influence some sort of behavior. You're trying to get less crime, you're trying to improve education. And we typically have these three tools. This is very unfair and a very big simplification, but if you're trying to improve something, you're trying to improve tax collection, you jump to these tools. Regulation, pass a law, incentives, let's fine people or give people money, or information. And behavioral insights is the idea that there's a whole other set of tools that you can use, right? And most of these tools are completely familiar for you when you're in your social life. If you're trying to get someone to come around for dinner, you'll use a whole raft of persuasion tools that are very behavioral, very psychological. But when it comes to policy, we get very rigid and traditional. So the idea of behavioral insights is, let's incorporate those tools as well. So let's take an example. The first example, and a lot of these are very obvious, but then the question is, why aren't we using them? So the first example is behavioral insights. We really care about what other people are doing. So imagine you're faced with this situation. You turn up at your bike, and there's a bit of paper on your bike, but there's no bin in sight. You're faced with this decision: do I throw it on the floor, or do I keep it in my pocket, put it in my bag, or wait to put it in the bin? Now, of course, you might think, well, you'd be influenced by what is the law, is there a sign putting up? But obviously one of the other things we're influenced is, what did everyone else do in that situation, right? If there's loads of litter on the floor, then you're going to do it as well, because it's an unfamiliar situation. And likewise, if there's litter on the wall, again, you take the signal of how to behave from the litter. And again, this is what happens in this experiment. You see this dramatic difference. If there's no graffiti on the wall, 33% of people throw it on the floor. If there's graffiti on the wall, 69% of people throw it on the floor. Because you're inferring what to do from the context around you. Okay, I mean, this is some interesting small-scale experiment. How can we use this insights to really make a difference in policy? Well, let's think about tax. You asked, how do we use this kind of insights to improve tax? In tax in the UK, we have these three traditional levers, right? It is illegal not to pay your taxes. We do have financial penalties. We have huge amounts of information. And yet, believe it or not, whatever you think of the UK, we still have 1 million people who don't pay their tax on time. Okay, so how can we improve this? Well, we did a series of experiments. The first one, let's take this concept. We care about other people, what they're doing. If we care about what other people are doing, why don't we just tell people? Well, by the way, 1 million people are not paying their tax. That means the vast majority of people are paying their tax. And this was one of the first experiments we did, and it's very simple. This is the letter you get if you haven't paid your taxes. This was the line we added. 9 out of 10 people pay their tax on time. And this was set up in an experiment, so about 10,000 people got the original letter, and 10,000 people got this letter just with this additional line. That was the only difference between these letters. The people who get this letter are 23% more likely to pay their taxes. So this was the first experiment we did. The tax department were very unsure about us. They were very skeptical. They let us change this tiny line on a letter. So we did this experiment, and we did a huge series of others over 12 months, just tweaking little things, experimenting with how we do it. And the sum total was this, which I think Nico mentioned as well. All these experiments together brought more than £200 million towards the UK government. Now, you might think, is this a uniquely UK thing? Well, it's not. We've now done these experiments in Costa Rica, in Indonesia, in Guatemala, and also in Poland. So this is an experiment we sent the same thing. So you get some taxpayers on the left who got nothing, and some taxpayers on the right who got this behavioral approach where we modified the communications. And again, that's a 17% increase. So it's not like you've suddenly overhauled the whole system and everyone pays their tax on time. But again, this was more than $1 million that was brought forward to the Polish government. And this, I should say, was partnership with the World Bank. And that's what I've just said. Okay, so coming on to the second part, who are the Behavioural Insights team? Well, we're an organization that was set up in the UK government, and it was set up with these two core ideas. One I've just talked about. There are all these reasons why you behave the way you are, and not all of them are these traditional ones. So let's incorporate these other motivations. And a lot of this research is being done by academics. What we're trying to do is take it from the academic realm and put it into policy. That's the idea one. And then the second idea is the experimentation, which handily Miko's talked a lot about. So the second concept is, okay, great, you've got these ideas, but you don't know if they're going to work. This was quite controversial for the UK government, so let's test. And that's what we've been doing for the last 7 years. We've run more than 500 of these experiments now. Tax, health, education, crime, justice, all different areas. And I'll try and persuade you that it's not uniquely a UK phenomenon and could be useful in Slovakia, possibly. You never know. How do we know what works? I mean, I guess this has kind of been covered. This is the traditional way you start a policy. I'm trying to solve unemployment. I start this policy. Starts with all these unemployed people. Imagine all of these black people are 1,000 kind of unemployed people. And then 6 months later, 22% of people have got a job. Is this a good policy? How do you know? You don't know what these people would have done without this intervention, right? Unemployed people are trying to find a job. So instead of this approach, we try this approach. You take one group who get nothing, you take one group who get a new intervention, or maybe another group that get another one. And you experiment and iterate and you get better and better. So that's how Make It works. So I'll finish with 3 examples of how I think this could improve policy in Slovakia, potentially. I don't know the answer to this question. You've got to try it. 1, sometimes the problem is actually behavioral. Sometimes you can enhance a program that already exists by focusing on the behavioral aspects, and sometimes you can make policies more user-friendly. So the first example is medication. The problem is behavioral. We've solved everything we need to solve some drug problems. We did this project on tuberculosis. 1949, they cured tuberculosis. 2016, 1.7 million people die of TB-related deaths. Have we solved this? Well, we've got the antibiotics. The problem is people don't take the pills. That's what I mean by it's behavioral. We tried this approach in Moldova, the trial that we've just finished. This is the original approach. People have to turn up at the clinic to take their medication. This is the new digital approach. People, instead of turning up to the clinic, they have an app. They take a video of themselves taking the pills. They send it to someone. This person sends them back a video saying, great, well done, you've taken your pills. What happens? This is the percentage of people take their pills who are observed taking their pills in the first group. This is the percentage of people taking their pills in the second group. This is like a huge increase. Now, this is in the capital Chisinau. We've got to scale it up. We've got to try it again, but it's super exciting for such a kind of rooted problem that people are just not taking their pills. And again, lots of partners work on all of these projects, I should say. This was funded by the UNDP and AFI, the person in Moldova. Second example, sometimes you have a program that you have a big aim, and what you need to do is use a behavioral focus to try and improve the outcomes of that program. This is a program that was running in Mexico. The idea is, I expect very much a problem in Slovakia as well. How do you get small businesses to formalize? Small businesses that exist in the grey or black economy, how do you get them to become part of the main and start paying taxes? They had this huge program that is basically offering massive subsidies for businesses. So if you're a small business and you formalize, we will discount the taxes you have to pay for the first few years. So you'd have thought, surely that's enough. You've got huge discounts and reasons, but actually a lot of people still don't formalize. And all we did was send these carefully worded SMS messages to complement the program. Lots of different arms. We tested different kind of behavioral levers. And again, these were the results. And all I want to do is highlight one thing. So this is the percentage of businesses. This was sent to 750,000 businesses in Mexico. This is the percentage that did it with the program, this huge subsidy, 24%. One SMS message almost doubles the, almost 50% increase in the effectiveness of the program. So you have this program that exists, you've rolled it out, and then just one SMS message to the business makes people take this very concrete action and formalize their business. Final example that I put in just because of the, I guess, the focus that was mentioned by the Vice Premier at the start. Sometimes we focus and use behavioral insights to make services more user-friendly. And this is like a really simple but nice example. So this is the idea of when you get a pension, at the end of your time, you get this pension, you have to make this big decision how to invest it. And it's such an important decision that what do we do in the UK? We send you a 50 to 100 page booklet which says all of your possible options, right? Does that sound user-friendly? we've also got all of that information online. So we tested out this new concept that we called the pension passport, which was condensing all of that information, 50 to 100 pages, to this one page. And this one page clearly had links to all of the information you need, and then we monitored whether the people who get the 50 to 100 page booklet or the people who get one page, which one of those actually engage, which one of those go and seek information, which one of those explore their options for the pension. And indeed, this one page is 10 times as effective as the 50 to 100 page book. It's 10 times effective. It's also much easier for the citizens to use. And this is kind of one example where testing this in advance had to happen. So anyway, summarize for you. I guess the Behavioral Insights team, but also other organizations that have been trying to introduce this Behavioral Insights policy are really trying to do two things. But they're both about making policy more human-centric. So the first idea is there has been lots of research on how people behave, and that research is not just done by economists. This is done by psychologists. This is done by neuroscientists, done by behavioral economics. So let's take this research and apply it. But the second part is really crucial. People are people. People are very unpredictable. And so we need to test as we roll these things out. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening.